Hello, all, and welcome. This is Ekta, founder of Vantage Point ShiftYourLife.com. I am a success coach helping emerging entrepreneurs change their thinking so they can achieve the goals they choose to. So, today I am super excited to introduce you to a very important person who has played an integral part of who I am in my own business. He is also a co author of the book with Jack Canfield, The Road to Success. Earlier in his career, he has been associated with many other corporate firms like OpenText. He is also Jack Canfield certified trainer and masters in NLP and CBT. We met on Train the Trainer Facebook group. I was wanting to ask a question and I asked and he responded. So after a few texts, Chris suggested we speak on a call. Chris then suggested that I do 12 weeks of coaching class with him and we did that and we speak at least once a month or more. So let's welcome Chris Minette. Welcome Chris. How are you?
Hi, Hector. I'm good. Thank you very much for setting this up, and I really appreciate your time and your devotion to what it is that you're trying to do.
Thank you. So I've read your book which you co-authored with Jack Canfield. Would you like to share about that story?
Yeah, back in 2015, it was August the 8th, 2015, when I actually um, became qualified as a Jack Canfield certified trainer. I decided to go through the coaching class myself because I wanted to understand the material that Jack was using because it's incredibly broad in what it covers. So I decided to go through the 12-week coaching class myself, and then part way through that, Jack decided to open up the Train the Trainer online, and I immediately signed up for that. And then later in that year, Jack offered me the opportunity to co-author a chapter in a book, and fundamentally, it just went, pebble after pebble. The momentum of what happened that year and the following year was fantastic. So I co-wrote a chapter about my life and taken me from childhood through to my coaching career and working with people all around the world. So yeah, it was an amazing period of time in my life.
Mhm. Great to hear that. Thanks for answering that question. So, you always say that there is something about the language we think and speak, and which brings results in our lives. So, the way we think, the language we use brings results in our life. Would you like to explain what you mean by that?
The way that we articulate ourselves and the way and the language that we use is incredibly important because like software and like computers that I've worked with over the years, you program. And when you program yourself, you get the results of the program. And the program of using language is very misunderstood by the majority of people that use it. You listen to others talk and they say things and you digest it and you ingest it and you act upon it. And when I started working with you, I said there are really two really important words that I try not to use,
Yeah.
and that's can't and should.
Yes. Yes. I had big challenges in those areas. I remember.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and the reason that they're so important and the reason that people don't really understand why those two words are important is because they lead onto lots of actions that you involuntarily have in your life. Can't is a very, very restrictive word, and it stops you from achieving the things that you want to achieve. Should is everybody else's opinion about what it is that you could be doing. When it is, if I say I want to achieve something, then I set about it by not using can't and should. If I want something, I use the language that gets me to the achievement that I want to get to. And so, yeah, using can't and should, and there are other words that you can bring in and you can, manipulate in your language. And if you remove can't and should, it makes you a more thoughtful person. If you're a more thoughtful person, that means you're thinking.
Yes.
And the more that you think, the more you achieve.
Mhm.
Because you don't just accept what's going on around you, you accept what you are doing to achieve the things that you want to achieve by thinking differently. And so, going back to the book, I wrote deliberately the chapter, Think Differently, Be
Yes.
Happy.
Yes. Yes.
And look at where you are now.
So true. Yes. And these are the principles I also share with my own clients. So it's like, they use the words should, I have to, or I can't. And it's like, we immediately pick on that and they start to change the language. And the moment they say I choose to, things starts changing. How they, perceive things and their perspective towards every other things changes, their actions change, their behavior changes. I truly agree with you. So what advice would you like to give to emerging entrepreneurs about fear of failure? Because mostly they do not even start, fearing that they will fail.
Well, you and I have both spoken about the word fear. And when you analyze the word fear, and I use it deliberately with people that I work with, is a fantasized experience appearing real. And when you conjure processes and thoughts in your brain and you create something that is an image in your brain, you're creating what is a reality.
Yes.
When you don't need to.
Yes.
And for any entrepreneur, failure is not a word that exists. It's only an experience. So you go through the experience of learning how to be a coach. You go through the experience of learning how to be a wife. You go through the experience of learning how to be a husband or a partner or a co-worker. It's an experience. So there is, to me, there are never, ever any degrees of failure. There are only a degree of success, and how you write that up on a chalkboard is entirely up to you. Have I been have I been a successful entrepreneur? To me, yes. I've traveled the world. I've been around the world about 30, 40 times. I have imagined myself working in countries I, as a child or as a young adult or a teenager, would never have imagined. I have succeeded in working with people from different continents that I would never have imagined. So if somebody tells me, have you ever failed or do you ever fear success? The answer is no. It's an experience. And it's the experience that you create around the environment that you think. Yeah. So that goes back to the language that you use. So the use of language, the experience, and all of the other things sort of come together. They're sort of a marriage made in heaven.
Okay. So are you saying that there is nothing called failure? It's an experience and how you perceive the results?
Yes, the perception of failure. How did I fail? I never fail.
Okay.
I never look at failure. I just look at an experience. Did that work for me? How did it work for me?
Yeah.
What did I learn from it? So if I have a troubled client, why did I have a troubled client? Was it something that I did? Was it something that I accepted? Was it something that I perceived about that person and I didn't understand?
Yeah. Or,
Yeah. So for me, there's never ever failure, only ever degrees of success.
that's interesting. It's basically a perception and how you want to define that experience. Truly
Yes.
agree. And yes. So how important do you think it is being authentic to your purpose in your life, and how important it is to find a career from your purpose?
I think that we don't discover our personality and our true values until you're in your 30s. I think it's a growing process. You're brought up by your parents, you are directed and you are given instructions. And it's not until 24 that your brain stops growing and you start to have your own ideas about things. It wasn't until I was in possibly my 40s that I started to think about me. And I started to think about what I wanted. And that was only brought about because I got divorced. And so that experience of going through that particular event got me thinking about me. And I remember going to the doctors and being written up for a prescription of antidepressants. And I decided at that moment in time, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to think my way through it. So I went to a bookstore and I bought Jack Canfield's How to Build High Self-Esteem. And I listened to that, and it was that programming that has got me to where I am now. So what you listen to, how you listen to it, and why you listen to it is so important. It's because you're building that program of thinking. How do I think about fear? Never failure, only ever degrees of success. What letters would you write down to describe how to move ahead? www.h. Who, what, when, and how. So you think your way through rather than let events take control over your thinking. And the majority of people let events take control over their thinking. It's like, oh my God, there's been a serious train accident, I'm going to die. Well, it's like, no. I create what I think. And so thinking is so important for me. And that's not everybody. Not everybody is made the same. But my experience is by changing my thinking, I have different outcomes.
Thanks for sharing. That was beautiful and wonderfully put. So would you please share about the one-to-one coaching framework that we have built up around over time?
So you and I have both worked on the framework, and when you first start to coach somebody, you and I have both talked about this puzzle of life.
Yeah.
And the puzzle of life starts with having a framework, which is the four corners of the puzzle, the top and the bottom and the sides. That's the framework. What you put inside of that framework comes out of doing the 12-week coaching class that I know that you are completely competent at delivering.
Thank you.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So we have an initial framework of how do you take somebody from 0 miles an hour to think at 1,000 miles an hour. And if you ask somebody to do that from day one, they would scream at you and run away. So what we do is we have a framework of thinking. So we want the person to discover who they are first of all. So how they think, who they think they are, and why they think they're on this planet at this moment in time. So we try to discover the 7 areas of their life. So whether it's social, relational, whether it's physical, etc. So we try to make them think about who they are, and we try to get them to discover something that's important about them. So we then create the statement about that, which is your affirmations and your personal statement. Once we've got the thinking out of the way, then we can do the practical stuff. So we can then start to say, well, you can order your life in this particular way. So you plan. Most people don't plan. There are probably events that they plan for, which is like public holidays, and they plan and they spend an awful lot of time doing that, but they don't plan their own life.
Yeah.
They don't plan their thinking. And it's so important to plan how you think. But the majority of people choose not to do that because they don't know how to do that. And the 12-week coaching program will assist them in achieving that. And working on a one-to-one basis rather than a group basis is, for me, incredibly important, because you build that relationship with your coach, you build that understanding of how they think, and how important it is that you listen to what that coach is telling you, and how you then interpret that into your world. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it. There is only is. And my experience of working with people is that some will come to it and graduate to it greatly and very quickly, and others will take time. And it might take more than one set of sessions. So, you know, the business that you run offers, after one-to-one coaching, counseling and mentoring on a weekly, monthly, bi-monthly basis, whatever the client feels as though they need. And that's important as well. It's having the support. It's no point in taking a person and dropping them in a swimming pool and say, learn to swim. Yeah.
Yes.
You need to be there to support that person through the journey that person is going to take. And for me, that is incredibly important.
That's yes. Like otherwise, it's like, you know, you feel alone.
Yes, and it can be a very lonely journey to discover who you are.
Yeah, because like no one believes in your vision apart from your coach. Mostly, it's like that.
Well, the coach doesn't need to necessarily believe in your vision. It needs to encourage the mechanisms that are going to allow you to achieve your highest self and to be the best person that you want to be, and to achieve the goals that you want to achieve at the end of the day. I mean, your goals are different from my goals, and we don't necessarily need to, you know, swap goals just because it's, you know, your goals are your goals, mine are mine. And there is no comparison, because comparison is the short route to failure.
Yeah.
And so as a coach, in my humble experience, is like, I'm here whenever you need me.
Yes. I totally agree. Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And I also speak from my own experience of having done 12 weeks of coaching program with you. And for a coach, you know, having a coach is essential. I felt that myself, that just doing a training or certification is just not enough. You need a coach, and you come out when you have a coach and you practice, implement, and go through an experiential learning through a one-to-one coaching program yourself, then what you are sharing comes from a place of authenticity, conviction, and trust in the principles. So for all of you who are watching and are thinking about having a coach and why you need one, then I'm putting few links below in this video, so you can get in touch with me or Chris to get on a clarity call with one of us, and get your clarity, talk to one of us, and understand the framework in detail. So the links will be out there. And thank you, Chris, for this wonderful time. And I'm privileged to interview you. And really, it's been very nice that you have shared your knowledge. And there is so much we can learn from you. You are a power pack full of knowledge. And every time you speak, everything is like fresh and new. So thank you for your time again, Chris. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah. Bye, Chris. Let's talk soon.
Bye.